go.
Ready to go? All right. Board of Health meeting, March 15th, 2022, 6 p.m. In attendance, we have Gary Magnuson from CMG, Jim Philbrook, our health director. First order of business is, thank you, acceptance of prior meeting minutes for March the 1st, which was 2 weeks ago. I have a motion.
I make a motion that we accept about the first 10 to 15 minutes of those meetings and call it meeting adjourned as quickly as it did.
I agree, and I believe that the meeting minutes, and I don't have them here, but I think they're in our stack. They reflect that as well,
Okay.
Matt. So that's that.
6:15, yeah.
That is what's in there. So we'll go ahead and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Meeting minutes abbreviated accepted for March 1st. Thank you very much. Old business, Cemetery Gould Road updates. I know that we've been looking at testing going forward because the testing will not be funded by ExxonMobil anymore. So what we did was there were some letters drawn up, and this was presented to Andrew Golis, the town administrator, to see if, and I just read it just before this meeting started. It sounded to be appropriate, concise, and yet a totally good story. Jim, if you want to interject here and just say where we are with that.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I was
On
reading
the
this.
The letter.
Cemetery Gould Road updates, the letter to the residents that's proposed.
I did give you the letter,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Look at it. Andrew did review it.
That's not it.
Where is the letter?
I have a copy here.
Okay.
And he did make some changes that he felt, and he wanted the board to take a look at it. It was just minor changes.
Right.
He just didn't want to give a false meaning that someone that we may be paying for it without it.
Correct.
This is if you'd like to only take into consideration that would be tested, because he doesn't want to put the town up to say that we're gonna, because then everyone's gonna. I've already getting calls on social media, people saying, well, if they're gonna test Gould Cemetery Road, my house is Salt, which is from the Mass Pike, and so it's starting to snowball here. So
Right.
we have to be careful.
No, and this, I think the intent of this was just to send this out to the Cemetery Gould Road residents that, and what was it, 12 or 13, Gary, residences that we're talking about here.
That's correct. It's 13, and the intent that I tried or the question I tried to answer was, these homes have been sampled either quarterly or semi-annual prior by ExxonMobil, and this recommendation I made of either once every 3 years, one home every 2 years, and a few of them annually, was to quell the concerns of those citizens and let them know that there's been enough testing done. You don't need to test these every quarter. If it's going to come out of their own pocket and they want to do the testing, I wouldn't recommend that they test it quarterly. I think that would be too conservative. These recommendations are appropriate for a reasonable protection of public health, protection of their own health, because we looked at the data and see if it was stable or increasing or decreasing. Most of them are stable or decreasing. So it's not necessary to test them every quarter, and it's no longer a DEP site which mandates the testing every quarter.
Right.
So this is more of a kind of a generic recommendation to protect those people, and if the board pays for it, that's one thing. If the people want to pay for it themselves, but at least it's a general recommendation.
I agree. Yes, Matt, go ahead.
I just read the language in that letter. To me, it doesn't look demanding by any means. I'm not really seeing the word voluntary program, but if you actually read what it says, you can definitely see it's voluntary program for these residents. I think the language of the letter is just fine. Basically, it says any questions, come to the Board of Health. They'll help you out with any questions you may have. I'm on board with that letter 100%.
Yeah, I agree. How are you doing, Pete, on that?
Yeah, I agree with the letter too, but I just wanted to clarify with Gary, just as a general, user of a well, it's good recommendation to have any well tested every 3 years. Is that correct?
Yes. There's guidance from the Department of Public Health. There's guidance from DEP. There's not really a specific document that says you must test this often, because it really depends on where you are what kind of exposures you have. But absolutely, Pete, people with a private well should consider testing, based on my recommendation, once every 3 years. And for all the parameters, all the potability parameters that everybody has to do when they build a new house. Many people think they do it once, and it's all good for the next 25 years.
Yes.
I just want to add to the conversation. So we're talking about people that are drinking the water. That's what we're concerned about, it's the drinking of the water. If you're drinking bottled water and showering, we're not really trying to reach out to the people that only use the water for showering. I mean, it would be great to know, but we're trying to protect, our board's trying to protect the people that are drinking the water. So if you still, and a lot of people are drinking bottled water, that's been a big cycle trend in the last 10 years, 20 years. If you're drinking tap water from your house, that's who we're trying to reach out for, to make sure that the water's safe to drink.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree. So the letter would go out to, and it hasn't been sent yet.
Not until the board approves it.
Right. This would go to those 13 residences just to see if there's interest. We might only get 1 or 2 residences that are interested. And again, we would still need to find some sort of funding for the testing. So it's still very, very much up in the air as to whether or not we can even go forward with this, based on if we can get any money for it as well. Yes, ma'am.
So our last meeting, we did get a chance to discuss the letter, and I said, John, if you want to read it and you were good with it, I was good with it. I've now had a chance to read it. I still agree to that. I'm good with it. So if you want to make a motion to send the letter, we can.
Okay.
If
let's go ahead and do the motion then,
So-
because I'm okay with it as well.
I make a motion that we submit this letter to the 13 residents and any additional residents the board feels necessary. I make a motion that we send this letter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We're good on that. Thank you.
Okay.
So for the next meeting then, Jim, what we'll do is well, depending on when it is and who we hear back from, when we do hear back from a majority of the residents, then I think we can go forward and talk about potential funding if we can get any. And we'll just continue with that on the agenda and see how things go from there. Yes.
So what we were looking for is A, funding if we could supply it somehow through the town. B, if we can't get that funding, if we had enough people that were interested in it, we were trying to see if maybe we could get them that group discount.
Right.
So that's kind of plan B.
Yeah. Agreed. Yes, Jim.
Also, we wanted to look into, even if we couldn't, if they were buying bottled water, could they possibly jump into the towns buying power where it's a lot cheaper? So that was another option.
And Jim, would that also include delivery?
Yeah, they deliver it to the house.
Okay, all right. So that's handy, so these people don't.
They would pay for it themselves,
Oh,
but
yes.
certainly
Right.
get the benefit of the town. We only pay like $6.50 for it. It's the money it's ridiculous what we pay for the water. I think the bill is wrong when I look at it so low. If they could get that certainly would help them.
Yeah.
Just think about it. If you're told don't drink your water for 5 years, it's no good. Then all of a sudden they're not responsible and they say go ahead, it's okay. I don't think I drink it either.
Yeah.
So they can understand how they feel.
Yeah.
Especially if you have young kids, but that's how I feel.
And especially that it's not a slam dunk that there's a permanent solution. There's still activity going on there, so.
Well, I guess the good news from what I could get out of the report from CMG was that, as Gary stated previously, the levels are in general decreasing or steady, and they're generally less than half of the state standard. Is that right?
Yeah, only 3 or 4 of them even approached half of the standard, and the rest of them were nowhere near.
Okay. All right.
So, but it's still it's a detection,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and it's a non-natural. It's gasoline. It's a human additive. So,
Right.
or MTB, I should say. But we don't have a source, and concentration's going down. So, my feeling was there's 5 years of data to show that it's decreasing. I think it's reasonable to have those wells tested annually.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
If I may, so Gary, there are certain residents that have pre-existing filtration systems paid for by other, right? And it's my understanding that those systems were sold to the residents for like $1 and that they get to keep them if they would like.
That's an accurate statement. Well, the only exception I'll make is my understanding they were offered to be sold for $1. I don't know if the people bought them. I don't know that information, but yes, that was what the responsible party had said in the public meetings, that they were going to offer them to them. And if people did buy them and they have any information, we can certainly help them out. We had a question last week on, one of the residents had a question on getting their laboratory data.
Yeah.
I reached right out to Maura at Kleinfelder. She jumped right back to me within a day. I had the data. So they haven't walked away. They're responsive and they'll help answer similar questions like that, I think. For example, if I bought the carbon treatment system, how much longer will it last? When's the last time you changed the carbon? I presume Kleinfelder probably gave them that information, but if someone has a question, we've got a direct line of contact with them. We'll get those answers for them.
Right. And this board would probably support the continued use of those filtration systems.
If, yes, if other parties put a filtration system in your house because you were at 25, 30, 35, and it is reducing the concentrations to non-detect, it would be prudent for this board to recommend continued use of that. Not absolutely necessary, but prudent, because it's now no longer in the DEP system, so it doesn't have that CEP, critical exposure pathway. However, 35 in the system, 35 out of the system, it's the same amount of concentration you're drinking. So yes, use the system.
So the only thing, and it doesn't make me nervous, but it's something to just say out loud, I guess, is those residents with filtration systems hopefully were, I don't want to say educated, but hopefully were educated on that they do need to be maintained, because right now they haven't been doing the maintenance. They've had these systems and it's been hands-free, but there was talk, and I don't know how accurate it is, but if you have one of these systems and you do not maintain your system, it actually collects the nasty chemicals and could almost make it worse because it's going through a thicker concentration. So it's important that these things are maintained to be properly used, I guess.
With any system, maintenance is the most important thing. A computer system, automotive system, drinking water system, you have to maintain it. I thought there was a discussion that they would explain to them where the status of the carbon was. They may have even changed the carbon out and put new carbon in. I don't know that definitively. But yeah, I'm sure they had I'm sure there was some correspondence provided as to the maintenance of those systems. Generally, carbon systems will lock in that contaminant. It will stay. They don't generally release a higher concentration, so it'll lock it in. Once all the carbon is used up, it basically, if you have 35 coming in and all the carbon's used up, you can't grab it anymore, you're still going to have 35 going out.
Okay.
It won't, if you had 35 coming in, it generally won't go out at 70.
I get you.
That's pretty unusual. I've had a lot of experience. Actually, we've put a bunch in for this town that we've run and operated, and low tech, pretty simple, very efficient, pretty easy to and feel pretty confident that they work well. So
there was talk on the Berry Corner Road and H-Foot Road and on that about that higher contamination if it's not changed out. That's why I bring that up.
So a very good point. That was 1,4-dioxane.
Okay.
Those carbon systems were not specifically designed for 1,4-dioxane. They worked for 1,4-dioxane. It was an emerging contaminant. We didn't really have all the information to know if they would work. Put those double systems in, they worked. MTBE, benzene, toluene, ethyl benzene, gasoline constituents, been around, carbon systems specifically designed to handle that. So yes, you're absolutely right. And the ones at Berry Corner and up on H-Foot Road, there were some concerns of that. And that's why double systems, as soon as there was detection in the middle, replace everything, start over again.
Yeah.
So less of a concern with MTBE.
Okay.
But an absolute concern with
1,4. Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on Gould Cemetery Road? We'll keep this on the agenda for the next upcoming meetings, I'm sure.
We'll get that letter out, Mr. Chairman, and when the responses come in, I'll let you know. I think we should give it a few weeks.
Sure,
People don't
absolutely. Oh,
respond that
yeah, I'm
quickly.
sure it'll take at least that.
Do we want to put a response date on the no later than?
It's a good
Sure,
idea.
it's a good idea.
Yeah,
Want to give it 3 weeks or
3
30
weeks.
days, or it's up to you.
3 weeks, 30 days, I don't know. What's the board feel?
If you don't, you're right, they may just,
Right, and then come back afterwards and say, "Oh, I want to." So,
How about 30 days? I
Yeah,
think
30 days, yeah, just in
Okay.
case somebody's on a 2-week vacation or something.
That's not-
we'll add that in there. Please respond within 30 days to the board. They're responding to me, but I'm going to get to John right away.
Thank you. If that's all then on Gould Cemetery Road, we'll move on to Flint Road and Old Town Road well contamination. From the notes that I had from a couple of weeks ago, there's been no contamination in the well samples, and we need 4/4 of non-detect for this to be a non-issue going forward. Is that correct? That is correct. All right, so I'm just kind of leaving this on here so we don't lose sight of it.
Yeah, the next sampling events are March and April. We're scheduling some of them, so there's really nothing to report for the next
Gary will be
month and a half.
testing for at least another 30 years.
Don't tell me 30 years.
Well, again, the outer ones, we have to, the outer more than 500 feet from the landfill, those, as we can get the 4/4, then we can start to drop those off. The ones
Right.
within 500 feet of the landfill,
Well, yeah.
we're going to be testing for a long time.
Right,
Yeah,
okay,
the no detection.
all right. Nothing else, then we'll move on to the next item, which is 54 Flint Road landfill closure. And just so I can let you know what I had written down last time, we needed DEP formal approval on the landfill closure. The state had allocated $150,000. We needed a survey. Estimated cost was $9,000 to $21,000 for that, and a wetlands delineation of about $2,000. And I think we went and approved the funding for that. So that's all set. For the funding it's,
You've approved the funding, the wetland survey is done.
okay, good.
The surveyor is working on his background data. He's actually communicating with Jim. We've got a little issue there getting the timeline set up, but he needs some boundary survey information and mapping from here before he can finish the field survey, or get going on the field survey. That will be done. I'm pushing him to get that done before leaf
Leave out.
so we can get a good elevation topographic survey. We're right on track. There's really no issues there.
How do we do in the wetlands? Is it a, or is it not bad?
So there, there are the whole back side of it and coming around is all wetland.
Right.
They're delineated. The real question is where's the property boundary? Where's the landfill edge of landfill material relative to that property boundary? And where is that relative to the wetlands?
Right.
Then the next bigger question, which we'll talk about in the months to come, is when we have that topographic survey, is what is the current slope of the landfill? And what is currently allowed in a landfill? And do we have to pull any of that material? Is that material going to have to be pulled back? Is the shaping going to be changed? Can it stay? Do retaining walls go in? What are options for filling? And we're going to do for you guys a cost analysis of multiple use options for capping of that landfill. So that's where that survey is just so critical.
Right.
And I don't know what's going on in the back because we don't have the survey done yet.
Just Chairman, and Gary and I have both met with Andrew Golis, Town Administrator. He's given it a go as long with the approval of the board to get the project going with the survey and do it. He doesn't want to delay it, so.
Right, well, it sounds like we're making good progress on
Yeah.
That's excellent.
We are moving forward. The costs are, relatively small. The survey and this scope, I think you guys approved $20,000 for that, and I think we had another 10 approved for some engineering. We'll be able to give you guys some good options at that point, and then we can really start getting into the nuts and bolts of what are the town's options. How does the town want to proceed? How quick do you want to go? Because keep in mind, we still don't even have a DEP approval of the assessment, of the initial assessment, which DEP has said they've approved it. So there's we'll be ahead of the game. You as a board will actually be ahead when DEP says we want the next document.
Mhm.
We should be able to fill out some forms and produce it and send it to them.
Good.
So you're going to be ahead of the game, and you'll be a little bit in the driver's seat. And I think you got to give the town and Jim and the whole board credit for, and Andrew for acknowledging that it's out there. We've been talking about it for years and stepping forward, and then the town approving some money at at town meeting to get it done, because
Yeah.
otherwise you're going at this backwards.
Mhm.
You can bury your head in the sand as long as you want, but you have to deal with it. And once that's dealt with, maybe the concentrations, hopefully the concentrations across the street will diminish to non-detect, and then we can stop sampling and protect human health. The whole ultimate goal.
Wow.
Full circle, right around.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, so we'll keep that on old business for the next meeting as well, unless there's anything else anybody has. No. 90 Flint Road, landfill mowing. We were close to approving, I believe, confirming the mowing schedule and the repairs of the liner. I don't know if we actually got that fully approved.
I believe the mowing for the 2 times in a year, I thought I saw an estimate of $10,000.
Yeah, I did, yeah. And the repair was
65 or 68, but we've already approved that and it's already in the budget.
Okay, all right,
so.
that's approved. And have you heard back from Mr. Burlingame?
Oh yeah, he
He's good with
presented a quote of 5,000 each time because he really can't change it. It could be easier, it could be harder, so it's 5,000, which is still very low according to when you saw the bids. And I think, as Gary can attest to, he does a great job.
Yeah, well, I'm hearing nothing but good things about that, which is excellent. So we are good then with the landfill mowing project and the contract going forward for the next year or 2?
The board would have to approve it.
We have to approve the mowing,
Yes.
10,000, but
Yep.
the
Okay.
repair's already been approved.
Yeah, you approved it, I think,
All right.
last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I'll make a motion that we
Please do.
accept BCB Landscape Services estimate in the amount of 2 mowings, 5,000 each, for a grand total of $10,000.
Second.
any discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So
Very good.
moved. Very good, thank you.
It was a good decision.
Very good
That
decision.
is- yeah.
It'll make a lot of things better out there.
Yes. Okay, moving on. COVID vaccine updates. I'm hearing nothing but good news for
Well,
the general on this.
Well, I don't know. where to start
Sugarcoat
on
it
this.
for us, Jim.
We only had 4 cases
Yeah, that's.
reported in
you know,
Charlton, which is are very low. In the beginning, 4 cases was a big thing. It's dropped down, but I think everyone's doing the home testing. Harrington stopped to 1 day. Everyone's taking the home test kits because they've given them away like crazy, and everyone can have them, even the board if you need some. We have cases, any committees, any board members. We just can't give them to the general public. But we have, we've been utilizing police, fire, even people in the town hall. They've been helpful. We have plenty. I've given a lot of them to the human resources that have been passing them out. So,
Good.
as far as COVID, we still have our nurse, Michaela, who's, we'll have to give her other projects to work on. But I think we're going to have to set up our own clinic for the next booster of Pfizer. So if anyone wants it, that'll be on us. We'll set up our EDS dispensing site and we'll set up times and we'll do that. I'm not sure how Harrington is going to be involved in this, but I think they're going to leave it up this time, which we've always had plans for our EDS dispensing site to do vaccinations, and we'll be well prepared for that. We do have our MIS number to order any kind of medications that we need through Cheryl, who's still our public health nurse, and then Michaela is our COVID nurse. And then we have Rihanna, which is under Town of Charlton's control, but she does Sutton, Holland, and Wales. No one would take that on, so I took it on. We just don't do the oversight. She is a Charlton resident in our end, and her husband is a paramedic here at the Charlton Fire Department. So they both girls, Michaela and Rihanna, do a great job, along with both girls in here. So we're still getting a lot of questions because there's a lot of doubt in there about, do we need masks, don't we need masks? Half the people that come in still wear masks. Some towns are still required masks, but the mask mandate is gone. I think at Charlton, we're very flexible with that. The kids are in school. The nurses aren't handling that. Our nurse, meaning Michaela, is handling all the school issues, outside activities, stuff that may have issues on buses or whatever. That is handled by us. So that does take a lot. She's monitoring Maven for cases, even though there's only 4. But there's calls from daycare centers all the time because they have the test and say they may have issues. So there's a lot of work there. So we're still doing that. Case numbers are down, as you can see, but I don't think that's a true number as far as how many COVID cases are actually in Charlton. But 4 in Maven, and those are because they actually went to the doctor, got tested, they didn't do a home test. So that's get into our reporting, into our system, and then that's what. So it's only 4. Sounds like a good number, but I'll take it.
Jim, you mentioned the Pfizer 4th shot vaccine coming up. I just briefly saw this on the news, didn't get the whole story. Are you saying that they have approved it now?
No, today,
talking about it.
Today on our DPH call, which is our weekly call, Tuesday at 3, they did discuss how Pfizer is recommending now a 4th shot. Nothing has been decided through the CDC, okay, the DPH, or whatever. Jana Ferguson, who's an assistant commissioner, has left. There's a new change in order at the top there. So certainly, but we will have the ability to, and if it does occur that we would have the ability to, we will set up clinics and make sure that anyone who does want a 4th shot would be able to get it, the booster.
And that's generally at like the senior center or something here.
We would do it at the senior center. I don't think we'd take the school. I think our EDS dispensing plan takes over Heritage School. I don't think, I'd try and stay away from the school and do it downstairs. I don't think we'd have that much of a flow, and I certainly don't want to bring people into the school if we don't have to.
Right, agreed.
Fair enough.
All right. All right. Anything else on COVID vaccine?
No, we'll keep you updated. Like I said, it's an ever-changing, it's very difficult because, like we were discussing earlier, there's Hipaa laws. If someone, I don't know who's vaccinated. I had an issue with, I'm helping someone, I had to issue an order of condemnation, which I'll talk about. The gentleman wasn't vaccinated. I didn't ask him, I didn't know, but still, it's something that I don't ask people if they're vaccinated because they get very upset. Mm-hmm. So, but they're saying that, you know, even in healthcare centers now, it would be office staff, but if you're in a non-medical area, you don't have to wear them. Some people still wear them, some people don't, but that's personal, up to the person, your personal choice. If you want to wear a mask.
Sure.
I don't currently wear a mask. I'm fully vaccinated, I'm healthy. If I'm sick, I stay home. So, and that's what we recommend to town employees. Don't come to work sick. That's why we give everyone kits to take home. On Sunday, if you're not feeling well, test yourself before you come to work.
Good idea.
So.
All right. Moving on. Pfas testing. I kept this on here. I think we all as a board kind of agreed that we were not going to, I'm trying to think of the word
support.
Here. Support, I guess that's it. DEP recommendation of having people volunteer in town, and along those lines, I was just in the last day or two looking on Charlton Facebook happenings, and there, I believe it's on there, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, DEP looking for residents to sign up, and I read through it, I thought pretty carefully, and there was nothing on there that said, oh, and by the way, if you're over the threshold, you're gonna have to put in a filtration system that could potentially cost you X number of thousands of dollars plus maintenance, and you'll also be on the radar for DEP and so forth. And I thought, doggone it, it's a good thing that we didn't, because I would have liked to have seen them do that.
Yeah.
And I think I looked at the application, not in the last couple of days, but before. And again, it should be right there on the top. Hey, just so you're aware, this is something that's pretty darn new for testing here in the United States, especially in Massachusetts, and the potential exists for you to incur a large amount of money to mitigate this if it's detected in your personal well. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're going to be.
I think, like with around the landfill when they had the 1,4-dioxane, we had an option to offer. There was no cost to the homeowner, and we achieved the goal of putting a water line around it. This time, they would be on them, and that's what's scary about it, because I think PFAS at one point you're going to find it everywhere, as Garrett can tell you. And they need to come up with some kind of funding. That's too much money for someone to maybe be retired or something. All of a sudden they find out that certainly they've been living there for 60 years and nothing ever happened. All of a sudden they're going to spend, because this is parts per billion, correct, Gary? Not right?
No, this is parts per trillion.
Trillion. So
1,000 times lower.
So that's a big difference.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say it, and it's not fixed income retirees, it's not first time home buyers. With what's going on in this world and the inflation and everything, money is money, and people have to be cognitive of how they spend it. And I think this board brought that, to the best of our ability, to the attention. That's not why we support the PFAS. It's not that we don't want you to test your water, because we do. We definitely want you to test your water and know what you're drinking or drink bottled water. But we don't want to see any financial hardships on I didn't know that was going to happen, like you said.
Right.
The full disclosure that is not there.
Oh, and I'm sure there's gonna be somebody out there, because they had quite a number of people, they're more than what they needed.
Well, Mary Jude has not called me, so she
Yeah.
was calling me quite often when she thought that we were gonna send out the letters for them. So, haven't heard from her.
Yeah, no.
And to be honest, DEP still works from home. Tried to get in touch with them today. They're still not working at the office.
My understanding is they're 1 day a week in the office.
Because I tried to get in touch for an issue, and it's they're still working from home.
Okay.
Except for
Well,
Kevin Dowse.
Email is the best way to reach folks at DEP at this point.
Yep.
All right, well, we can take that off for
Yep.
next time.
Okay.
All right. New business. I did want to bring something up on new business. Something else I came across on the website. I think it was happenings also. Hazardous Waste Day, March 26th.
We're handing out vouchers as we speak.
That's why I wanted to bring it up. So anybody listening
Yep.
at home,
We have them.
I knew that there was one coming up. I didn't realize it was less than 2 weeks away. You have to sign up here by March 24th. You get a $30 voucher, which is good for what's considered a half a car, which is not what you can fit in your back seat, believe me. But how many do we have, Jim?
We have only given out 9.
9, and how many do we have available?
We have 100.
So we got plenty. If anybody's listening, you can sign up.
Stop in.
Look in your garage or your basement, and if you've got some old paint or oil paint, gosh, I'm trying to think, because I need to go through and check. I probably got enough. Radiator fluid and things like that.
Freon items.
Freon, yeah. R134. Yeah. So any of that
Anything.
stuff.
If you don't know what it is, then
That's the place to take it.
that's the place to take it. Don't dump it out in your back.
So-
Oh, God, no.
This is an outlet, like if somebody had an old TV, I think there's a cost to get rid of a TV.
There is,
$20.
true, yes, thank you.
And this
Yep.
this would accommodate that cost, so now you don't have to throw it on the side of the
Yep.
road, you can have it properly disposed of.
And tires,
Tires,
They're on the side of the road.
air conditioners,
air conditioners, right?
refrigerators, all of these things that are on the penalty list at the landfill. There's
Yep.
some relief.
Yeah, and if you can't find the information out there, call the Board of Health. I'm sure Jim would be happy to explain it all,
Absolutely. Anyone in this office.
or
can
point you in the
decide.
right direction.
So it's a free voucher for Charlton residents, they can get them at this office, and they're good for $30.
$30 worth, which is
Which is
considered
half a truck. Half a
I
truck.
forgot. They
Half a
put it-
truck.
And there's a certain weight that they,
They do. They do.
that they
wait,
correlate
but
that
they've
to.
been- Certainly, and that's something we need to work on later to see, when the landfill settlement agreement, which we'll probably talk about after, that this board should probably start discussing more often.
Okay. But I did want to bring that up. Any other new business from board members or Jim? Okay. Department head reports, Jim?
Yes, as first I will talk about, I've been doing a lot of housing inspections, a lot of complaints, a lot of issues. One of them, I had to issue an order of condemnation, and we have someone staying in a hotel. I just went to the hotel today to get the bill, and his daughter paid for 3 nights, and the church paid for 3 nights, and I paid for 1 night to keep him. And he's going to be heading to Tennessee to go with his son. So we had Mary downstairs working as kind of to get his Social Security set. We gave him $300 voucher for gas through Helping Hands, through Elaine and Mary, and hopefully we've got someone to sell his house. But someone complained, and it's in pretty bad shape. The roof had collapsed, and the gentleman is basically living outside inside his house. Wonderful man, just down on his luck. So certainly I went there, I did an assessment, and as you can see, that's what he was sleeping on. Not good.
That's where you're sleeping?
And that's the hole in where he sleeps, and that's the roof outside. So, and the family wasn't aware of it, so they were very happy. Dad, no,
So I guess
no water.
the takeaway from this is hopefully there's a happy ending here. When he moves to Tennessee, he'll be in his son's house and
Yes,
be in
and
much
his
better
son is very,
conditions.
they've been lifelong Charlton residents. I wish he would have noticed that the roof was leaking earlier. I could have got the Lions Club or Knights of Columbus or someone to quickly help him fix his roof, but it's past that point, so that it's going up for a quick sale.
Yeah.
When you walk into the middle of the house and in the kitchen, you see that, you know there's a problem.
Unfortunately, that is not the first time we have seen that.
No, it's not, and it won't be the last, but certainly I took quick action on it and helped them out right away. And I would just wish we had more of an arm to have an option. But if you're a single male and you need help, they don't help you. But if you're a woman with children, you can go to transitional care assistance and get help. So I had no options. We tried and tried to get him housing, and finally got in touch with his family, and he's going to be leaving for Tennessee. The house, the real estate agent called. They're going to put it up for a quick sale and get the man some help. But his son was very thankful because he knew nothing about it.
Mhm.
So,
Wow.
so
Here,
that's-
yes, Max.
So I just want to say, you know, kudos to you, Jim. Once again, money out of your pocket to help somebody you never met before. I've seen you do it time and time again over the years. I get choked up. You're
like
such
you.
a good guy, you know.
Well, I have to go home and sleep at night, and I couldn't let him stay there. There's no options. There's no other way to do anything. So the church offered. His daughter only gave him 3 nights, and I told him, take as many nights as you need. It's only money. I'm not a rich man, but I certainly wanted to help him out. And I think that's one thing the municipalities and the state need to do. Have more options. When you see something like this, we really don't have any options because I don't have any funding available. I can't use our municipal money like that. So we have to look for other outlets. So we called everybody. We were on the phone nonstop trying to get housing. There were literally hundreds and hundreds of people waiting for housing. And in Charlton, there are no apartments available. And they're $1,500, $1,200. They're very, very expensive. Not for someone on fixed income that he could afford. So we had no choice. But his son talks to me every day, appreciates it. And I spoke to his daughter, got the family reunited basically. And he's going to be off. We printed his directions. We put him in his phone. We gave him the gas card. We had his vehicle checked. I met with him at his house today to get important documents to try and get the meter off the house, get his cable box. So we helped him. So and I checked on him today.
And he does it time and time and time again over the years. I can't count it on all my fingers. He's always digging in his own pocket and giving. This board is lucky to have him. This town is lucky to have him. And thank you very much.
I
I
agree.
appreciate it, but I think that you have to give. I'm a giver, and I like to help people. And I felt in this case, I can't go home and sleep knowing that this man would end up sleeping in his truck.
Right.
And he could have froze to death.
Well,
So
I hope he makes it there. Okay, is he up for the trip to Tennessee? That's not a short.
he is up to
drive.
trip. He's a pretty sharp guy. He's a very
Okay.
nice guy. Just very, very laid back, and he needed a little bit of help. So I gave him the help and the incentive. We even found that he wasn't getting enough Social Security, so he's getting more money. We found that he lost his Social Security card, so we ordered him a new Social Security card so he could.
Gracious.
So he eats downstairs now. He loves it. He gets a hot meal. But now his son, he's going back down with his son.
Well,
So I'll be happy when he's safe and in his son's hands and in
his son's
Tennessee.
gonna call you
because
when he says his
His
dad
son
made it
will-
there. Okay.
his son will call.
Good.
He's a lifelong Charlton resident
Okay,
also, and he didn't know about it. So I tell everyone, if you haven't seen your mom and dad or your grandmother or grandfather, call them, make sure they're okay. But physically go to the house because they can tell you they're okay, but be in living conditions that you would not believe. So
Yeah, we've
always
heard
check
stories.
on people.
We've
Check
heard
on
some
your
of the
neighbors,
stories.
and kudos to the neighbors that called me that were just concerned just for his health
Yeah.
and safety.
Yeah, you don't want the guy freezing to death outside.
So that's the issue with that. Hopefully, this board can keep the landfill settlement agreement, and we can start working on making sure we have hazardous waste day, a drop-off station, a transfer station, and we need to make sure that, Andrew came to me, that we can make a decision on, we need a hauler for the towns and stuff, because all the dumpsters, that contract goes away. So that's something that
When does that occur?
the end of next year.
Okay.
So this is a copy of the settlement agreement. What I'll do is scan it and send it to each board member that Robin had made. But I think we have to step it up. I've been working on some stuff, but then I know that the recycling committee did make some mention to Andrew, and Andrew felt that it didn't belong with them, it belongs with this board and myself.
Correct.
To really, this is very important to the town. They were saying that they'd like to have a single hauler, and I don't believe a single hauler is the answer, not in Charlton at least, but we have to do, because the schools dumps, the dumpsters at the school, the dumpsters here, the dumpster at the library, the dumpster that we have for Old Home Day and stuff, that's no longer, we're gonna have to pay for that stuff. So we really need to come up with some kind of recommendation. I think the money item that would, recommendation from this board to the selectmen, that you would make a recommendation to them. So Southbridge wants to go in with Charlton, possibly to have the transfer station up on the tarmac up there, and that we would share costs of that, so we'd have a transfer station to go to, so people could, but that's also a cost. So we're looking at costs, we're looking at who would handle it, who would run it. There are things to look at there, but it's very important. I know that having a single hauler, I'm not in favor of it, and I don't know, but that would be a decision and recommendation that this board would make, and not come from a committee like the that did make a recommendation. I think it's a little bit over their head. I think this is way, way too important to taxpayers, and it should be a board decision, and we need to start really being aggressive to looking into what agreements we can have. Are we going to have a household hazardous waste day? How much is it going to cost? Because I'll have to put this in with a budget if we need the money, and I think it's important to keep that going and to make sure we have a transfer station, because some people like to utilize a transfer station, but what's the cost with that? Can we share it with Southbridge and another town? And that's something we need to talk about.
Jim, would you like to, this as an agenda item for our next meeting?
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think we should keep it on there until we come to some kind of recommendation to the
Right.
to the selectmen.
Then we'll have Andrea put it on there, because you know, once you start talking about the cost of the town and so forth, I know that eventually somebody on the finance committee is going to want to know ballpark figure, like, hey, you know, going forward for next year, oh, by the way, we don't want to spring that on last minute. Yes, Matt, go ahead.
So just from my understanding of what was just said, if we're to discuss who's going to haul the trash for the town, whether it's company A, B, or C, I don't really think the Board of Health has to get involved in the town financing of picking a trash hauler.
Correct.
I have no problem with that. If the town does it and they use company X, that's fine. That was the town administrator's choice, or whoever makes those decisions. I have no interest in getting into that business. But if we're talking a transfer station, you know, that now becomes on our plate. And in the household hazardous waste day, that would be something that this board would have to facilitate and keep that going. So I understand, you know, what we have ahead of us. There was a time when Jim Malley brought in, it was Blackstone Landfill Recycling. They have a transfer station there, and it was one of Jim's towns. So a gentleman came in from the Board of Health, and they were actually able to make money because they had one of these balers. It compacted cardboard, and they were baling out cardboard, which they were actually selling for profit. And then because they had their balers, the surrounding towns were bringing their cardboard, and it was actually a profitable thing to fund that transfer station. So if we get into that discussion, there's going to be an education. This board's going to have to hear about all the options and all that. But the flip side, and Gary can tell you, the DEP regulations and site assignment and whatever comes along with having a transfer station is another whole can of worms and paperwork and red tape. expense. So if we're actually considering a transfer station, you know, the negotiation, we definitely have to talk about it and see what we can afford.
Yes, Jim.
Sure, and that's a good point, Matt. That's why it's already approved, the site in Southbridge, so it'll be a little easy with the paperwork, because Charlton, Southbridge, and Sturbridge are basically part of that agreement. It's already approved for trash there, so it might be a little bit smoother transition. I have not spoken technically to Southbridge about it, because I wasn't dealing with it at all, to be honest with you. I had nothing to do with it. But I think now that, with the board's permission, I should probably pursue and give you certain options so the board can look at it. As far as the hauler from your home, I think it's a personal decision who you hire,
Yes.
and I think it should remain that way. But I think for the buildings and schools, I think that's a decision that the board might want to make a recommendation.
Agreed.
And
Yep.
especially a transfer station, and a household hazardous waste day, and who's going to run it, and what the costs are, so we can bring it to FinCom to make sure that we continue that.
Sure. All right, we'll put that on for new business going forward.
Very good.
I'm sure you've got something else, Jim.
Incom sent their emergency action plan in, which companies don't realize they have to send them in to the Board of Health. So if you have a company of more than 100 employees, then you have to have an emergency action plan, and we usually get these. I'll be doing an inspection tomorrow at the order of the police on Flint Road. I won't give an address at this point in time, but it certainly it deals with the handling of animals, and an issue that I've dealt with in the past with the family.
Okay.
So we'll be doing that. We had an issue with some more people camping out. The police called me on right across from Steve Sylvester's property, actually, in a van. They gave the police a hard time. I went there today. They had left, and we have a couple of illegal businesses operating that I had to take care of. So it's been certainly. And also, I wanted to ask the board, and maybe Matt would have a better idea. On Dressy Hill Road, you know that they tried to drill for a well that sits on the high peak.
Mm-hmm.
They got no water whatsoever. A company did another evaluation, so they got half a gallon a minute, and they wanted to put a 3-family. And I said, no, it doesn't. You're not going to have water.
Half a gallon a minute for 3
So-
families?
Because our regulations calculate out 110 per bedroom, whatever. So we did the calculations, because they're going to be taxed on that, and the value of the property is rated on that. But so I looked at it and said half a gallon a minute, but we're actually in a very, very issue. Charlton's been very dry in the past, where Matt will tell you that a lot of wells have run dry.
Mm-hmm.
They're in a wet season and getting half a gallon a minute down over 1,000 feet. They only had dust when that's why they did away with it, but now they're trying to say that they want to build a 3-family, and I said no. So
It's 4, isn't it 4 gallons per minute? Is it
Supposed to have 5, I believe.
5 is an ideal. We have some that get way more than that, but
But
we'll
4
let them
is
go
the
for
minimum.
even a gallon. We would let a 2-bedroom, because a gallon a minute, according to ours, we must have it between 1 and 5. Now at a half a gallon, I was very reluctant for someone to spend all that money. Let the town give an appraisal value in a 3-family and then go dry.
Yeah.
So I asked them today, I called the owner and said, why don't you move your well? Because the farm that's there has been there for over 100 years, has plenty of water at 70 feet. I just think they tried to drill in the wrong place, and they fracked it 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah.
And they got dust. But this other company said they got a half a gallon a minute. And I'm like, they haven't been there. So they did come over and ask me, and I said, no, I just not comfortable with this.
One of the problems with that well is the way a well is drilled, it's basically in 20-foot sections. So they go down 20 feet, they throw on 20 more feet of rod, they go down, now it's 40 feet, and they continue.
Yep.
At a certain point, that drill is so heavy after you have 800, 900, 1,000 feet that the drill rig can no longer pick it up to make its function. I mean, you can't just keep going and going and going. It's at machine capacity, and that's why a lot of wells are 800 feet. If you got an awesome well truck, you might get 900 feet or 1,000 feet. That's what happened at that one. It maxed out. They didn't. They were hard pressed to find a well driller that could go 1,200 feet or deeper, and so that's what happened there. And I know they fracked it. I know they had no luck on that.
Dust when they fracked it. Dust. They pulled everything out. It was bone dry. So I'm just letting the board know, if anyone complains, it comes to the board, that I've told them today that I'm not comfortable with a half a gallon a minute during the wettest season we've had probably in a long time. That, you know, the water table is very, very, very high in Charlton, but we've had years where it's dry, and that well will go dry.
Do you guys understand the fracking process?
Oh, yeah. I had mine done 28 years ago when I moved into my house.
How about zone fracking? Are you familiar with that?
No.
So, just generally speaking, on a frack, they'll put a plug in it, and they blow a massive amount of air in any weak spot in the veins. It usually they'll have some relief, and the pressure goes right down. You know you have water. In zone fracking, and this would be a candidate for that, because instead of trying to frack and throw all that air down 900 feet, you put two of these plugs in. You might put one down at 300 feet and another one at 200 feet, or however much distance in between. It's up to the well driller or the fracker. But now when they force that water in, it's isolated, not for the entire well, but between the two, and so more pressure goes in that zone.
Perfect, yeah.
And it's a much more effective, more costly, but much more effective way to do it. And I believe that well was zone fracked as well. They tried to get water, and it just didn't happen.
Frombay's out of Connecticut, I think they are. They did it twice, and they had to pull out, and they didn't build the house, and state trooper. I know the gentleman. I know the owner of the property, but I spoke to him today, and he said, "Yeah, we'll try and move the, you know, but they'd have to relocate the septic system, but move the well to the back."
Yeah, the cheapest solution, I can't believe I'm saying this on camera, get a dowser out there, right? These guys with
with the vining rods.
with a willow, you know, had it done at the house that I grew up in. Guy charged, I don't know, $5 or $10, and he said, "I'm going to hit water here at 80 feet, but it's going to be gravel and it's going to collapse." But he said, "I think at 120 feet you're going to be good." And that's what happened. I mean, I supposedly, and that was it.
I just didn't want someone to buy a really expensive house in Charlton and have no water.
Yeah.
Half a gallon a minute, it's not sufficient in our, according to our well regs. So could they build a 1 or 2 bedroom? Banks don't give loans for a 2 bedroom, 3 and above. So there's a situation with that, but I'm just not comfortable with it.
No.
Is there an alternative method, like a holding tank or something? I mean, obviously it wouldn't be potable water, but is there an alternative method that for a shower, or is that just not really good for a house?
They do that in state buildings where they have special care for, they put a tank in there. It's not potable, but they use it for sprinkler system. But a half a gallon a minute, if it went dry, I just don't know. I'm not confident that when it gets really hot, that they're gonna have any water.
Yeah. In a sprinkler system, to me, and I know there's been talk about residential sprinkler systems and having these big 30,000 gallon tanks that hold the water for them, but it's a little different for fire suppression. Water's water, can come out.
Yeah,
it can be
doesn't matter.
stagnant. It can have mold. I mean, no one
Doesn't
really
matter.
cares about the quality of water. In this case, where it's the possibility of it being potable, even though you could put every sticker on the world not potable, it's still probably going to come out of a tap. I don't know about a holding tank either. I'm just trying to think if there's any other solution for that.
I said to them, Mr. Chairman, if I may, is drill somewhere else.
Yeah.
I know it was expensive, but if you really want to be there and you want a home, get more water than that.
Are you talking right up by the farm at the very top where
Yes.
they have the
No,
The
it's
yellow-
not that far up.
You're talking going up the hill on the right and it
Yes.
was down. All right, so I'm familiar with this. They broke they didn't break through, but there's a split in the guardrail there where somebody went in, and I said, "Oh, they're putting in a house there." The next thing I know, they said, "Oh, they couldn't find water," and they gave up. That's the house. So it's up the hill, just past E. Bayless Road.
Correct.
Soper Construction put that road in, and it cost them 17 grand just to put that in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because it was on a slope. The whole thing's on a heck of a slope.
But
yeah.
I just wanted to bring it to the board in case someone, but I wasn't comfortable approving the plans and spending all that money for someone to
No,
be
you're
disingenuous
right.
on a half a gallon a minute.
Especially a three family. We're asking.
It doesn't
for
meet
trouble.
our regs anyway. 2 possibly, but I don't think there'll be water there in a hot summer day. I just don't.
I agree. I think they got to drill a new well.
I agree.
What's the cost to drill a 1,000-foot well?
Well, it gets expensive,
Yep.
but in addition to the physically drilling of the well, which could be $8, $9, $10,000 and
Yeah.
more when you get over that 400-foot threshold. If we got to relocate a septic system, now we're into engineering
Yeah,
fees
yeah.
and all that. So it's a big picture, really.
It's a lot of money, because you have to re-engineer the whole entire septic system. You have to move that, remember, you gotta be 100 feet away from it, so they're gonna have to move the well. I think if they went to the back with the well, put the septic in the front, that would be okay, but I think the ledge is the issue, but they tried to drill right through it, so.
Yeah.
And isn't the whole lot on a kind of a slope as well? Or
Yeah,
is
it
there-
drops down.
It drops down, but it drops down to the old farmhouse, the old Duhamel farmhouse there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
so.
All right.
But, that's all I have for now, so, it's
Okay.
been busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Any other business unknown at the time of the posting from board members? No. Okay. Next, determine our next meeting. I'm thinking 4 weeks. I don't think we have anything pressing. I don't know when 4 weeks puts us to.
Gary knows.
Probably
April
about
12th.
April 12th. That's a week before the break. So that's good. I'm good with that.
I'm home.
Jim's checking, he's saying yes. Gary, you're okay with that? Pete? All right, next meeting. In person okay for everybody?
Yep.
Perfect. April 12th, 6 PM. At Town Hall. All right, very good. Thank you, everybody. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I just want to say it one more time. I can't believe what Jim does for this town. The people
Thank you.
almost got me crying. So, you know, it means a lot to me.
I know it
Here,
does.
look at the happy face.
I
That'll
know.
make you better.
There's
I
a happy
think-
face.
It's just one thing to do enforcement, and there's another thing to do the right thing, and I always try and do the right thing.
Thank you, Jim. That's definitely appreciated.
It's
And you know
unbelievable.
what? You made a difference in that guy's life.
Absolutely.
All right.
I know I did, but it makes me feel good, so.
Good. Thank you.
So I make a motion, we adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is over at 6:59. Thank you very much, everybody.